Hi boys and girls, this is the instructional video for Lesson 3-1 Addition of Integers. It will begin in your workbook on page 127. Alright, in this section you're going to be learning how to add integers. What are integers? Integers are all of the whole numbers and their opposites. So that means that we would be looking at numbers that fall to the right of 0, all the whole numbers. But we're also going to be looking at numbers that fall to the left of 0, the negative numbers. Okay? Those are your integers. The words that we're going to be learning: additive inverse property, and opposites. Right? This is a handout. If you're working from home, I will post it as a PDF that you have the ability to print. Otherwise, you can just kind of follow along. First of all, integers are any numbers that are positive or negative or 0. All right, so that's what I was telling you before. Whole numbers are all of the positive whole numbers and all of their opposites. We're going to be adding integers in this section. And what I want you to understand here is that if you add a positive to a positive, you get a positive. You already knew this. You've been doing this since first grade. 1 plus 1 is 2. You just never said positive 1 plus positive 1 is positive 2. Okay? If you add a positive 1 to a negative 1, you get 0. 0 is neither positive nor negative. In fact, we often call it neutral. Okay? So a positive 1 and a negative 1 make a 0. We will also call those 0 pairs. Right? So coming down to this part here, negative 1 plus positive 1 equals 0, which is neutral. Negative 1 plus negative 1 gives you negative 2, which is negative. When you're adding two positives, you get a bigger positive. When you add two negatives, the same thing happens. You get a bigger negative. All right? This is like you borrowed $1 from your mom, and then you borrowed another $1 from your mom. Now how much do you owe your mom? You owe your mom $2. Okay. It only gets weird when we start adding positives and negatives together, and that's where the bulk of this lesson is going to be focused. Here it says more positive than negative, blah, blah, blah. I want to go to the next page, and I'll come back to this one. Here we have some basic addition problems with positives, negatives, and one of each. Okay. Now, in class, we're using two-color counters, so I'm going to draw those two-color counters here to illustrate these problems also. We used yellow for positive, so this would be like 1, 2, 3 positives, and we're going to add to that 5 positives. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So when we count all those together, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 positives. You already knew that. You've been adding 3 and 5 since second grade. All right. Same with the 6 plus 3. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 yellow counters. And then we add 3 more yellow counters. And now we have 9 yellow counters, or 9 positives. Same thing would happen here. We would have 10 yellow pieces and 4 yellow pieces, and we would end up with 14 yellow pieces. Moving on to the negatives. If we have 3 negatives, and we add to that 5 negatives, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. How many negatives do we have altogether? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 negatives. Same thing happens here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So our 6 negatives. To that we're going to add 3 negatives. 1, 2, 3. Which gives us altogether negative 9. Same, I would draw 10 negative dots, and 4 negative dots will give us negative 14. Okay? But look what happens when we come over here. All right? Here we're adding one of each. We have 1, 2, 3 positives, but we have 5 negatives. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Well, recall that I told you that when you add a negative 1 to a positive 1, that creates a 0 pair. Okay? So that means if we have a negative and a positive, they create a 0. Therefore, they can be taken out of the problem, okay? This one and this one create a 0 pair, and this one and this one create a 0 pair. So what we're left with then, once all of these have been removed from the problem, what we're left with is 2 negatives, -2. Okay? Let's do the same with this one. We have -6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And to that, we're going to add 3 positives. 1, 2, 3. All right? So now we remove 0 pairs. Always remove 0 pairs if you have them. That's a 0 pair. That's a 0 pair. That's a 0 pair. So once those have been removed from my problem, what am I going to have left? I have 3 negatives, or -3. Down here, I'm going to have to draw it this time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 positives and 4 negatives. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right. Now I'm going to remove the 0 pairs. All right, so that means I remove 1 positive and 1 negative. 1 positive, 1 negative. 1 positive, 1 negative. 1 positive, 1 negative. If I remove all of these from the equation, what do I have left? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 positives. So what I want you to realize is that when you're adding 2 positive numbers together, you just add the numbers and the answer is positive. Same thing with negatives. If you're adding 2 negatives together, you just add those 2 numbers together and the answer is a negative. It's just you had 3 negatives and you added 5 negatives to it, so now you have 8 negatives. But when you're adding a positive and a negative, it's different. Look at this. Here we have a 2. Why is it not 8? Well, it's not 8 because we removed a bunch of 0 pairs. We took some of the numbers out of the equation. The answer is what is left. Now, looking at 5 and 3, is there any way to add or subtract those to arrive at the number 2? You could take 5 and subtract 3, and that would give you 2. Okay? So let's look at this one. Here, why is this not 9 like these? Well, because we removed stuff. Why is it 3? Well, because that's all we have left. Could you do an addition or subtraction problem with 6 and 3 to get an answer of 3? Sure. 6 minus 3 is 3. Same with 10 and -4. It's not 14, it's 6. But you would have to do a subtraction problem. You would do 10 minus 4 is 6. So then how do you know what sign these numbers are going to have? You know now that you have to take the bigger number and subtract the smaller number each time. But what sign do you give the answer? Well, here's how you tell. Whichever number was bigger to begin with, that's what you're going to have left over. Whatever number was bigger to begin with, that's what you're going to have left over. Whatever number was bigger to begin with, that's what you're going to have left over. So you can do these problems by subtracting the smaller number from the bigger number, and then whatever one was bigger, that determines the sign of your answer. Okay? The bigger number determines the sign. The bigger number determines the sign. It tells you what you're going to have left over. Clearly, if you're going to remove 4 pairs from here, what's going to be left over? Positives. If you're going to remove 3 pairs from here, what's going to be left over? Negatives. So let's go back to our handout thingy that we were looking at. Down here, I got a little carried away there. Down here, it says if you add more positives than negatives, your answer will be positive. And if you add more negatives than positives, your answer will be negative. That is the handout. Now, we're going to move into the reveal book. I don't care for their methods. However, I do like the fact that they use word problems. And so we are going to look at some of this. This is on page 127 of your Reveal workbook. It says, to add two integers with the same sign, you can use a horizontal or a vertical number line. Now, they like the number line system. I prefer the two color counters. It's up to you, whichever one you like. Here they're saying add -3 and -4. So you start at 0 and you go into the -3, and then you go into the -4 and you land at -7. Okay. Over here they want you to add -5 and -4. So you start at 0 on a vertical. This is kind of like a thermometer. Okay. You go down 5 and then you go down 5 more. Well, it's like in the morning you woke up and it was -5 degrees, but before the bus got there, the temperature went down another 4 degrees. So now it would be -9. Makes good sense, right? The number lines illustrate the rules for adding two integers with the same sign. If you add two integers with the same sign, their absolute values, the sum is. If both of them are positive, the answer is positive. If both numbers are negative, the answer is negative. Okay. Next. Here they have an example. They want you to use the number line to add -7 and -2. Well, I like the two color counters, so I would go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then add two more of them. And altogether I have -9. All right. Here, if I start at the 0 and I go to the left 2, so left 2, and then left 7 more, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This number right here is -9, and that's what I get. So they're saying the other thing you could do is you could know that -7 and -2 is going to be -9 by just adding the 7 and the 2 together and then saying, okay, both of these were negative to begin with, so my answer is going to be negative. Piece cake. And I have an example here, -5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. All right, so how many negatives do I have now? I have 16 negatives. Okay. Okay. So this brings me to this worksheet that this is also a handout. I will have a PDF of it posted on Google Classroom if you have the ability to print. If you do not, you can just pull it up on the computer, write your answers on a piece of paper, and you can send me a snapshot of your answers. Use your cell phone, take a picture, send it to me. You can use your tiles if needed. You can use the number lines, or you can use the rules that we know exist. Okay, let's see, this would be a +6. So if I was using my little tiles, I would have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 positives, and I would have 2 negatives. Okay, get rid of 0 pairs. Those are my 0 pairs. What do I have left? +4. Makes sense, because when you have a positive and a negative, you subtract them. You would do 6 minus 2 is 4. And then what sign is the 4? Which number was bigger to begin with? The 6 was bigger to begin with, and it was positive, so the 4 is positive. Let's do another one. We have -5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And we want to add +8 to it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now we get rid of the 0 pairs. That's a 0 pair, 0 pair, 0 pair, 0 pair, 0 pair. We have 3 positives left. You could have subtracted the smaller number 5 from the bigger number 8. You're thinking in your little think bubble here. You're thinking 8 minus 5 is 3. What sign is the 3? Which one of these numbers was bigger? 8 was bigger. 8 was positive, so 3 is positive. It makes sense. That's what you're going to have left over. Okay. I'll do a couple more with you, and then I'm going to have you do the rest on your own. We have 3 negatives and 5 positives. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. Cancel 0 pairs. What do we have left? +2. Or we could have said 5 minus 3 is 2. 5 is the bigger number, and it's positive, so 2 is positive. And the last example I'm going to do with you, 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 positives. And we have 6 negatives, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Get rid of 0 pairs, 1, 2, 3, 4. What do we have left? 2 negatives, -2. 6 minus 4 is 2. Which number was bigger to begin with? The 6 was. It was negative, so it stands to reason that's what we would have left over. And this is a -2 because of it. Okay, so using that method, I want you to go through and finish this worksheet. In the next video, I will go over the solutions for these problems, and then we will continue on in the Reveal workbook. But for today, that's all the material that we covered in class. So stay tuned for tomorrow, and we'll have the next exciting episode of how to add negative and positive numbers. See you then.